Hello and welcome to week 6 of Marketing with AI. Um, Today we will discuss customer segmentation using artificial intelligence, and we will have a look at multiple segmentation algorithms. Um, we'll have a look at how things are um, discussed from your book chapter. So let's just have a look. So the first one is we will define AI driven segmentation and contrast it with traditional demographic approaches. That is all from chapter 4 of your main textbook. We'll see how we can apply clustering algorithms. Um, so K-means, which is a workhorse algorithm, um, it is used in so many different places, and then we'll discuss hierarchical to identify customer segments. Hierarchical for understanding relationships. We'll have a look at some examples of that. Then we'll create data-driven customer personas using AI techniques and behavioral data. So from abstract segments to actionable personas, that is our goal. We will try to use NLP and see how machine learning techniques can enrich this understanding. We will try to connect to um, week 5's personalization literature. And then we'll have a look at we'll revisit the IPAO framework, which is identification, personalization, automation, and optimization. So we'll see how segmentation plays its role in there. And then some ethical things to consider, like bias in the algorithms, privacy with combined data, transparency requirements. So we'll have a look at all that. Okay. Now, 7 parts to mastering AI powered segmentation. One is you have to know your foundations. So we'll spend some time on foundations, and then why segment, what kind of AI lets you do that. Then we've got data sources, where do you get the data from to cluster segments. Then we'll have a look at several algorithms: k-means, hierarchical, dbScan, request frequency, and monetary. Then IPAO framework, personas, ethics and risks, and practice. So these are the 7 major sections of the day. So let's start with the first one, which is foundations. So let's start at the beginning. Why do we segment customers at all, and what's different about AI driven segmentation? So in this section, we will establish the business case for segmentation. We'll have a look at the traditional approaches versus AI approaches. We'll understand where AI enables that wasn't possible before using manual methods. So some key statistics to preview are about 75% of companies are using or planning AI-powered segmentation, 40% increase in engagement after AI segmentation. We saw that in the last lecture as well. And about 60% improvement in customer satisfaction. So let's have a look at the business case of moving beyond mass marketing. So there are 4 reasons. Reason 1 is resource focus, which is marketing budgets are finite. If you spend equally on all customers, you're under investing in the high value segments and over investing in the low value ones. And segmentation helps allocate resource very optimally. For example, a retailer might find 20% of customers generate 80% of the profit, the classic Pareto rule. So why spend equal amount of marketing dollars on 80% who barely contribute? Okay. The second one is message relevance. So generic messages almost get ignored. Dear customer emails have lower open rates than personalized ones. So segments enable relevance at scale. Segmented email campaigns, which are targeted towards individuals or segments have 46% higher open rates than non-segmented emails. The third one is product development. So different segments have different needs. Understanding these differences guide product roadmaps. For instance, a software as a service company, SaaS company, might have power users who want advanced features and casual users who want very simple features. So you can't serve both with one product category. Okay. And the final one is pricing strategy. So not everyone has the same willingness to pay. Students versus professionals, they are price sensitive. So bargain hunters versus convenience focused premium buyers. For instance, airline segments buy business versus leisure. Same seats, very different prices. Okay. So what is the traditional approach? Now there are four types that or things that we need to discuss. One is demographics. So the most common and easiest way to implement traditional segmentation is using demographics. Who are your customers in terms of measurable characteristics: age, gender, income, education, occupation, family status. For instance, millennials age 25 to 34 with household income of 75,000 to 100,000 K. That's one segment according to a traditional segmentation approach. So the limitation is that if you cluster a millennial like that, two 30-year-olds can have completely different behaviors and preferences. Okay. Then you can segment based on geographic regions. So where are your customers located? Important for physical retail, local services, climate affected products, for instance, health conscious fitness enthusiasts versus convenience focused busy professionals. The limitation is expensive to research, often based on small samples. Okay. So then we've got the behavioral one. So what do customers actually do? Purchase patterns, usage levels, loyalty, for example, frequent buyers who respond to loyalty programs versus occasional purchasers. So the traditional approach limitations are that they're based on assumptions and intuitions. They're not based on data most of the times. It's static. They don't adapt to changing behavior. Small sample size in surveys and in focus groups don't cover the whole population. And they're often wrong about what actually drives purchases. So it is not the most efficient approach to do it traditionally or manually. So Bridge is the AI. Traditional segmentation asks, what do we think customers want? AI segmentation asks, what do the data say the customer actually do? So what are the limitations of traditional segmentation? Number one is surface assumption. So you assume a lot of things. Demographics don't predict behavior as well as we assume. The classic marketing joke is 35-year-old male in Sydney could be a CEO or unemployed. And research has shown that demographic-based targeting has only 30 to 40% accuracy in predicting purchase behavior. The second one is static segment. So you create a segment in quarter one of an year, and by quarter four, the market has shifted, but your segments have not. So the pandemic showed us how quickly customer behavior can change. So for example, a dine out enthusiast segment becomes irrelevant when lockdowns happen. And companies with dynamic segmentation adapted, others did not. Then small sample size is another problem. So a survey of 500 people is 0.001% of a million customer base. The margin of error is pretty big. So you're making $1 million decisions on very tiny samples. In contrast, AI segmentation uses all your data, every transaction, every click, every day, every hour. Um, the fourth limitation is single channel, which means customers don't live in one channel. They browse on mobile, research on desktops, buy in store, or complain on social media. Traditional segmentation sees just fragments, not the whole picture. For instance, you might classify somebody as low value because on website purchases he hasn't done much, and missing that they're spending heavily in store. So the business impact is that when segmentation is wrong, marketing is inefficient. You send discounted offers to customers who would pay full price. So why would you do that? You promote products to people who have no interest. So how does AI bridges this? It solves the problem by looking at behaviors, not just trades. Updates segments dynamically, very quickly. You can do it in every day. It uses all the data that you have gathered, and it integrates across multiple channels. So the next thing up is, what is AI-driven segmentation? Well, basically we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to discover natural customer groups. So we let data tell us what groups exist rather than we deciding ourselves. So the keyword is discover. We're not imposing structure, we're finding structure based on data and customer behavior. So let's have a look at a comparison table of traditional approach and the AI driven approach. So segments defined by marketers upfront. So people who are marketing professionals, they do it themselves, as compared to data driven segment computation. So the traditional approach can be based on demographics and surveys. AI driven is actually based on actual behavioral data. The traditional approach is static. It may be reviewed once a quarter if you really want to spend a lot of money, or mostly it's yearly. But AI driven is dynamic. It is updated every week and in real time. You have limited variables in traditional approach, 3 to 5 dimensions, maybe 6 dimensions. But you have hundreds of variables. For instance, real-time updates. As new behavior comes in, a customer can move between segments based on their last actions. And we discussed that Netflix has about 1,300 plus different likeness profiles. Okay. And then you have same segments for all channels, but in case of AI driven, they can vary by channel and context. Now let's have a look at some business case for AI segmentation. 75% of the companies using or planning AI segmentation, 40% increase in customer engagement, 60% in satisfaction, and 27.7% AI marketing is the growth, which is about 28% year on year. So this is one of the fastest growing areas in marketing technology. So let's try to find out the business outcomes. Number one, it's efficient spend of your company money. So instead of spraying the market with dollars everywhere, AI tells you exactly where to focus on. So the return on investment improves because waste decreases. You have high conversion rates. The right offer to the right person, so at the right time. That's what makes it so effective, and AI segmentation makes this scalable. You have reduced churn. So predictive segmentation identifies who is likely to leave before they leave, and you can do some proactive retention measures to keep them or win them back. Then product market fit. So different segments want different things. AI helps you understand what they want. Now the number two domain is data sources. Where do you get data from? Where do you get data from to implement segmentation? There are four major areas: transactional data, which is what customers actually buy, tells you what they value. Then purchase history, what, when, how often. Order value, so you have high ticket items versus frequent small purchases. You have categories like fashion buyers or electronics or sports goods. You have channels like online, in store, mobile. So all these buying channels are there. So a customer who buys premium organic products monthly is often very different from one who buys budget items during sales. Okay, so that's one domain of getting data. The second one is behavioral data. So what customers do online reveals their intent and their interests. So you have website paths. What pages do they visit before buying? You have search queries. What are they looking for in Google and other browsers? You have dwell time. What captures their attention? You have click stream, the full journey, not just outcome. So that's behavioral data. For example, someone who searches or researches extensively before buying is different from an impulse purchaser. Same purchase, different segment. The third source is social and text data. So, what customers say tells you how they feel. Reviews like positive or negative sentiment, support tickets based on pain points and problems, social posts, brand mentions, lifestyle clues. For instance, natural language processing can extract that frustrated with delivery times is a theme in support tickets for a specific segment. Okay. And the last one is IoT and sensor data. So where customers are, what do they do physically, location, frequent coffee shop near work versus home, in store, which aisle do they visit, device usage, which devices and which apps are they using. For instance, Starbucks knows from mobile data that you order a latte at 7:30 a.m. They can suggest it proactively. Okay. Now the challenge is data integration. So the magic is combining these data sources, stitching them together, and then writing AI that can look at all the connected data for a specific customer. So a customer's in-store behavior, online behavior, support interactions, social media, the complete picture. Okay. Now more data isn't always better. You have dirty and incomplete data, inaccurate data. It pollutes the other data as well. So you have to be a bit careful so you don't collect garbage. Now the third segment is what are the segmentation algorithms? So in this we will study some techniques which actually help us to cluster these things. So there are three major algorithms that we will discuss. We'll see how they works. So clustering is unsupervised learning. There is no right answer we're training towards. The algorithm finds the structure that exists in the data. So we don't tell it anything. K-means is the first one. So we group data into K groups by minimizing distance to group center. You specify the number of groups, and there is a way of finding how many groups are perfect. It is very fast, very scalable, intuitive, but you must pre-specify K or the number of clusters. So, for example, you say K is equal to 5 for a retailer. So cluster 1 is high spenders. Cluster 2 is deal seekers. Cluster 3 are seasonal buyers. Cluster 4 are new customers. Cluster 5 are churning. So the way you choose this number of clusters, there's an elbow method which we employ. So that's what K-means clustering is. Hierarchical clustering, it builds a tree of clusters, either merging small clusters up or splitting larger clusters down. So it shows relationship. Imagine each customer starts as their own cluster. Then the two most similar customers merge. You keep merging until you have a one big cluster. Okay, so the dendrogram shows this hierarchy in the coming lectures, in the coming slides. Um, why is it valuable? It shows how clusters relate. Maybe your premium and aspirational um, segments are closely related but distinct. The third one is DB scan. So it finds dense regions or of points. It can discover clusters of um, different shapes and identify outliers. So DB scan is really good at finding outliers or finding any shape, but it is very sensitive to parameters. It is best for detecting unusual customers. Um, hierarchical clustering is best for understanding segment structure. Okay. So how does k-mean work? So we first step is we choose the number of clusters. We say let's start with 5. So too few, you miss um, a lot of clusters. Too many, you actually break clusters which were supposed to be 1. So let's say you chose five centers or 5 clusters. We randomly give values to those centers, and then we say, okay, based on these centers, which say these are salary ranges. So we say 20,000, 40,000, 60,000, 80,000, 100,000. These are 5 centers. Let's start. So all the customers with the closest center, their salary to the closest center, will assign them to that cluster. So all the 19,000s and 21,000 people will go to the 20,000 cluster, and so on. And then once you have divided them all in clusters, we calculate the average of that cluster again, because now you have people in there, and we calculate the average of all the salary. So the centers change, and then we take all the customers out, we rebalance them or we reassign them the clusters, and this keeps on going until all the clusters become stable. Okay. So choosing k value is actually, we use an elbow method. It may not be relevant to this class a lot, but the elbow method is we keep on choosing clusters until the loss becomes kind of stable. But anyways, then we've got the RFM analysis enhanced with AI. So RFM has been used since 1930s in indirect use. It's simple but powerful. Customers who bought recently, buy frequently, and spend a lot are valuable. That's what we studied in RFM. So recency, frequency, monetary. Recency is how did they last buy yesterday? When did they last buy? Yesterday, 2 years ago. And then frequency is how many times have they bought in a certain time space. And then monetary is how much money have they spent. So we spent a lot of time on this. So connection to weak work, we applied RFM in our data analysis. Let's have a look at descriptive versus predictive segmentation. So descriptive segmentation answers who are my customers, what they did in the past. High value loyalists who actually give you a lot of business. We try to understand our customer base. The limitation is that it's backward looking. You have to collect data, wait for it, and then look what happened in the past. So that is descriptive segmentation. You base it on past data. Predictive segmentation is what will customers do next? What will be the future behavior probabilities? Are they likely to churn in the next 30 days? What are some proactive interventions? Prevention versus reaction. So AI enables predictive segmentation at scale. Instead of who bought a lot, we try to find out who's likely to buy next or who's likely to churn next. The fourth one is the IPAO framework. So let's have a look at some of these stages. 4 stage segment discovery to continuous improvement. The first stage is you identify or collect and analyze data to discover meaningful customer groups using AI algorithms. Personalization. So you create segment specific personas. You message and experiences are tailored to each group. Automation is you deliver the right content and offer to each segment automatically. And then optimization is you measure the performance of your strategy and you refine it. So questions answered are: how many segments exists? What categorizes each segment? How large is each segment? What's the value of each segment? So that's for identification. For personalization, what are the questions asked? What content works for this segment? What offers drive responses? What channels do they prefer? What journey makes sense? So the automation is the automation questions could be: what triggers should launch campaigns? How do we tag customers and segments? What platforms deliver to each segment? How do we maintain relevance at scale? And the optimization is: what metrics shows success by segments? What experiments should we run? Are segments still valid? Do you want to resegment? What is the return on investment of your segmentation, and all these things? So IPAO is not just a linear process, it is a continuous feedback loop. So optimization insights feed back into identification and it's continuous improvement. So the framework connects week 4, 5, and 6. 4 was analysis, 5 was personalization, 6 is segmentation into an integrated system. And this is why we are repeating IPAO framework, because what you've studied in week 4, 5, and 6 is all relevant to that. Okay, so identification, finding segments with AI. What is the goal? We detect distinct customer groups hidden in large complex data sets. So identification processes, we aggregate data from multiple sources. We create and pre-process. We run clustering algorithms. We find the clusters. We interpret and name them, and then we validate with business logic. For instance, an airline discovers weekend travelers from booking patterns, a segment that wasn't in their traditional segmentation approaches. What are the tools? Orange data mining is one of the best tools. RapidMiner is another one. It doesn't require too much coding. BigQuery, Python scikit-learn, that's all coding. Monkey-learn is very less coding, more drag and drop. But Orange is one of the best platforms out there. Then for personalization, the goal is to turn raw segments into human-friendly personas. It could be one person, it could be a cluster of people. And it helps marketers design for an act upon. Okay, so what offers do you design for this persona, and how do you act upon your insights? So what are some key personalization activities? You create the persona profiles and their stories, define segment specific value propositions. We tailor messages and we tailor offers. It may prefer some may prefer one channel as compared to the other one. So email, some prefer email, some prefer text, some prefer advertisement, some prefer letters. So we map preferred channels per segment, and then we build segment specific customer journeys. Some great tools are Salesforce Einstein, which is CRM persona insight. We have HubSpot, which is automated persona suggestion. We have ChatGPT, Claude, which generates persona narratives. Then we have Qualtrics, which is survey enriched personas. So week 5 connects to personalization, and this week as well. Okay. The fourth one is automation. So the goal is Segmentation without automation is just an academic exercise. If you segment once and you don't automate that process, it's just like you are segmenting manually, because things change very drastically. So the capabilities are: how do you trigger campaigns based on segment membership? Dynamic content that adapts to segment tags, automated A/B testing within each segment, real-time segment updates as behavior changes, and cross-channel orchestration per segment. The key insight is automation makes segment actionable. Without automation, segments are just going to get stale. Now, the tools for automation are HubSpot Marketing, you have Marketo Engage, you have Google Ads Smart Bidding, you have Meta Ad, you have MailChimp for automated email journeys, and you have some e-commerce segmentation softwares. Third one is optimization. So segments are not just set and forget. Markets change, customers change, your segment need to change too. So key metrics are response rates, revenue per segment, retention and churn, segment satisfaction scores, cost to serve per segment, return on investment. The idea is that the feedback loop is complete when we do the performance data, refine segments, test changes, measure impact, and then feed it back to identification. Tools are Google Analytics, okay, Tableau, Power BI for KPI visualization, Optimizely, which is experiment by segment, H2O.ai, which is a data robot, and advanced modeling, Amazon Personalize, which is adaptive segments. So let's have a look at data-driven process. What is it? So segments are data clusters. Personas are human stories. Let's explore how AI helps create rich, actionable customer personas. So a persona is a segment with a face and a story. It makes data actionable by making it repeatable. The components are name and demographics. So given a segment a name like weekend value seekers, so that is a decent name. Cluster 3 is a bad name because it doesn't explain anything what that persona does. So add representative demographics from data. Why it matters? Marketers think in terms of people, not clusters. Sarah, the selective shopper, guides creative decisions. Then we've got behaviors. What does this persona do? How do they shop? What channel? What triggers? Then we've got needs and goals. What is this persona trying to achieve? What problems are they solving? So sometimes inferred from behavior, sometimes enriched with survey data. Why do they behave this way? Okay. Then we've got preferred messages. What messaging resonates with which people or which segments? What offer drives response? From testing, A/B test results by segment tells you what works. Document this in your personas. Then metrics. So hard numbers about the segment. What is the size? What is the value? What is the risk? What is the growth potential? So is this persona worth investing in? How much? What's the opportunity? Okay. So data-driven personas combine quantitative segments with qualitative insights which can be measured, grounded in data, but human in presentation. So let's see what synthetic persona and simulated panels are. The core concept is, what if you don't have data? It's a new market, it's a new product. You have privacy concerns. AI can generate realistic customer profiles for testing. So let's look at a use case. So you have a new market entry, no existing customer data. For instance, launching in a new country, no customer data yet, synthetic personas based on market research and similar markets. Then product testing. Before launching, it simulates how different personas might react. It is cheaper than real world testing. A/B testing, it predicts which version wins before running the actual test. It saves a lot of time. Okay, and then stress testing. What if our biggest segment churns 50%? And you simulate extreme scenarios to prepare. So there are generative models like GANs, generative adversarial networks. They can create synthetic data. The generator creates fake data and the discriminator tries to spot fakes. They improve together. Okay. Um, so the applications testing marketing messages, simulating campaigns outcomes, training models without privacy risk. So this is where synthetic personas um, are used. Then we have some ethics and risks in AI segmentation, like we have to remove privacy and bias. So data combination is each data source alone might be fine, but combining purchase history, location, social media is where the real gold is. For instance, Target's famous pregnancy prediction buying certain products correlated with pregnancy. They knew before family members that somebody is pregnant. So the question is this helpful personalization or just um, big brother surveillance? Okay. Then sensitive inference. So AI doesn't need you to say you're sick or your political views. Patterns reveal it. So buying vitamins, losing loose clothes, certain foods, not buying alcohol or smokes, that can infer that somebody may be pregnant. Um, the risk is, what if this inference is wrong or used against um, the customer? Okay, in insurance, in employment, in discrimination. So third-party data brokers sell profiles. When you buy this data, you're using information customers never knowingly provided. Is this ethical? That is a fair point. And the trend is third-party cookie dying, first-party data becoming crucial, but legacy practices they still persist. And then the retention period. So old data makes better segments. Um, but does a 5-year-old browsing session is it relevant to the customer still today? So long retention may mean better models. Short retention means privacy respect. Find the balance. You have to find it. And there are key regulations in GDPR, which is the European standard. We have CCPA, which is the US standard. And we have the Australian Privacy Act 2024 amended. All require transparency about data use, its collection, its disposal, its storage. So there are guides that are there to be followed. Now, what is algorithmic bias? We touched upon this a little earlier in the class. Um, so training data reflects past discrimination. So if past marketing excludes groups, AI doesn't learn. For instance, luxury brand AI agents only, demographics that historically bought excluding new wealth. Um, so they have a very specific niche, a group of people that they are targeting. So, for instance, Amazon recruiting AI downgraded women because historical hires were mostly men. The AI learned gender bias from biased history. The second one is representation bias. So some groups leave less digital footprint. Older customers, they don't give feedback. Usually they use cash to buy things. Lower income immigrants, rural residents. AI doesn't have enough data for them, so it doesn't have representation in the models that AI create. So poor segmentation for underrepresented groups is the result. They get generic treatment while well-represented groups get personalized treatment. Then you've got feedback loops. So this is bad. AI makes decisions, decisions creates data, data confirms decisions, and it just keeps on going. Um, so example is mark customer as low potential, give them poor experience. They don't buy. AI says I was right. So AI was wrong, maybe wrong in the first place. So solution is randomized experiments that break this loop. Sometimes treat low potential customers very well to see if AI was wrong. Then proxy discrimination. So you can't legally discriminate by race, religion, gender, but AI can find proxies that correlate. For instance, zip code correlates with race, or um, economic conditions. First name correlates with ethnicity. Purchasing time correlates with religions. So AI uses these without knowing its discrimination, but we label some of these as discriminations. So mitigation strategies are audits, diverse data, fairness constraints, and human oversight. Okay. So let's have a look at 6 principles of ethical segmentation. One is transparency. Clearly communicate what data you collect and how segments are used for marketing. Number 2 is consent. You have to get consent from people whose data you're going to use. Control. So you give customers ability to opt out of profiling and personalization. Fairness, which is audit segments outcome across demographic groups, and it detects and corrects bias. Proportionality. So just because you can uh, collect data doesn't mean you should. So minimize the need. And then accountability. Someone must be responsible if this data is being collected, so you have to maintain an audit trail.